What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I am joined by two of the greats in this industry, Jurg and Dame. Fellas, how are we this week?
Doing good, doing good. Football season's coming to a wrap. You know, you got the conference championships now. We're gonna find out who's going to the Super Bowl this weekend. Two very good games. It took me until literally like 5 minutes ago to decide who I'm gonna pick to win these games, but I'm very excited for this weekend.
Yeah. It's a double edged sword. You know, we're happy that the playoffs are continuing. We're going on, but it's sad because soon enough the NFL season will be over, and we have to deal with that. We also have to deal with this terrible weather we're having over the next day or so. I'm going to have a mix of snow and rain here, boys, and I know I'm pretty sure it's going to rain for you guys in NYC, but we will not let this terrible weather rain on our parade. We are here to, as always, give you the best analysis on the best sports podcast.
That's right. So we will be reviewing the divisional round, and we will also be giving our predictions for the conference championship games, and then, of course, we'll end off with crowns and clowns of the divisional round. So that'll be the rundown for this week. So, fellas, without further ado, let's get into it. How about we start off with the NFC divisional round recap, okay, and then we'll go to the AFC. Uh, let's get this one out of the way. We got the Giants at the Eagles. Eagles pounce the Giants. Pounce the Giants. I believe we all. Yeah, this was kind of a hat trick, right? I don't think anyone had the Giants. We all had. Yeah, no, we all had the Eagles. This is the one where we're all in agreement. So the Eagles defeat the Giants 38-7. For the Giants, Daniel Jones goes 15 for 27, 135 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. For the Eagles, Jalen Hurts 16 for 24, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. This was kind of like a one-sided game. Eagles slaughtered them. Not much to be said here. Look, if you're a Giants fan, I get it. I'm hopeful that you were gonna at least be in this game, but let's be honest. The better team won. The better team took care of business ASAP. But if you're the Giants, man, like you guys, like what a great season y'all had. No one expected you to go to the playoffs, and then of course you even won a playoff game. So technically you overachieved, but can't take away anything from Giants this season, man. They're gonna have to make some really important decisions this offseason. We won't talk about it this week, but for the Giants, good for you. Very positive. Not much to take away from this game, though, other than the fact that the Eagles' defense just kind of pounced them. Jalen Hurts looks solid. I think that week off really did help, though. Yeah, and now we're on to the collision course, which is the Eagles and the 49ers. But this was kind of a one-sided game. I guess this is the one where we have the least to talk about. But, Dan, let me start off with you. What'd you make of this game? And what'd you make of performances from both teams?
Well, I knew the Eagles were gonna win. Well, at least I predicted it, but I thought it was gonna be a lot closer. I didn't think it was gonna be like a field goal or something like that, like last second or anything. I thought the Eagles would have probably controlled the game, controlled most of the game, and probably win by a touchdown or two. But I didn't. I mean, I didn't expect this kind of ass whooping. 38-7. The game was over within the first quarter. It was like 21-0, something like that. Right after that Daniel Jones interception, I think in the first quarter, maybe early second. The game was over by then. It was already 14-0. Then the pick, and then they drove down, got another touchdown. Um, and I feel like they blew them out, and I still don't feel like Jalen Hurts had some mega game where they scored this many points because of him. So it's extremely impressive by the Eagles to be able to do this. The Giants were rolling momentum. Their defense has been great all season. Daniel Jones was just coming off his best game of his career, and the Eagles just with the whole week off, so you would expect some rust to be there. Um, but there was absolutely no rust on defense and offense. This team is just moving. This team is loaded. Honestly, the best offensive line in the league, arguably one of the best defensive lines in the league. Uh, they destroyed the Giants. So for the Eagles, it's on to the next one. Obviously, their toughest opponent in the 49ers, who, to be honest, I feel like these teams are probably the two most loaded teams in the league, just from top to bottom, defense, offense, D-line, O-line, special teams, all that kind of stuff. I feel like both their strengths are the same too. It's just the line. Their offensive line on both teams are probably 1 and 2 in the league. Both their defensive lines are probably 1 and 2 in the league. So I'm very excited for that match. But as for the Giants, like you mentioned, they have a really important offseason. Daniel Jones up for a contract. Saquon Barkley up for a contract. And you already saw the reports that came out that Saquon Barkley declined a $12 million per year deal, which, to be honest, is what I would have paid him, nothing more. So I'm kind of shocked that he turned that down because you see how invaluable running backs are now. Like they literally grow on trees in drafts. So any running back that you have to pay, you could just let him go, and you'll just go draft one in the fourth round or something like that. Or you draft two in the fourth and the sixth, and you'll get the same kind of production for 75% less of the cost. So it's gonna be interesting to see what the Giants do with that. But I think Daniel Jones is the biggest question because obviously that's the quarterback position. Obviously, he had a better year than he had in the past, but what other options do you have if you don't go with Daniel Jones? But how much are you going to pay him? Are you going to overpay him where you really can't move off him going forward if he's not the guy, or are you going to kind of be safe and maybe franchise tag him so you give him another year to prove himself, and then you can really evaluate the quarterback position more? But this was a beatdown like no other. Um, Much to my joy and a couple of my other friends' joy because we have a couple of Giants fans who are just insufferable and thought this was 2011. But yeah, it was a really bad game for the Giants and a great game for the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much in-game analysis to really give here. Like Dame said, I think that's the most interesting thing is that the Eagles won this game, but it wasn't Jalen Hurts didn't win this game. It was their defense that it just absolutely pummeled Daniel Jones with the 5 sacks with the interception on him. They literally gave him no room to breathe. Uh, and ultimately that was the thing. And the rushing attack too, 268 yards rushing by the Eagles. Kenneth Gainwell 112 yards, Miles Sanders 90 rushing yards, Boston Scott 32 yards. Apparently, like I saw some stat, I wish I had kept it. He has like what 10 or 11 career touchdowns against the Giants or something like that between rushing and receiving. So this guy just shows up whenever it comes to the Eagles and Giants games. But yeah, simply put, it was a blowout. I I thought it would be more competitive too, although I knew the Eagles were going to pull away at some point eventually. But yeah, it was just an absolute shellacking. And it just goes to show that, hey, well, A, the Vikings are even bigger frauds, and B, that like the top of the NFC compared to the bottom of the NFC, like that's how big the gulf is. That the New York Giants, a fine team, scrappy, made the playoffs this year, but they are not at the top. They would have also gotten destroyed by the 49ers, and they would have probably gotten destroyed by any real team if a real team was the third seed. But sadly, the Vikings are not a real team. So there we go. Um, this just goes to show when the difference between the top teams versus the teams that do make it in. Like Dame said, great season for the Giants. You give them all the respect in the world, but now they have some decisions that they have to decide. Dame kind of mentioned it. Barkley declined the option. I think the thing is that he wants more from the Giants specifically because I think everyone knows. Like, yes, he had a good year. Yes, I gave him my crown last week. But Daniel Jones still has a lot to prove. This does not answer any questions. Brian Daboll protected him a lot throughout the season. And I made the comparison, was it last week, I believe, when I kind of like made the comparison to the Jacksonville Jaguars when they made the AFC Championship game. And they gave Blake Bortles, it was like a 3-year deal, like $60 million or something close to that mark. Are you willing to pay this guy $20 million a year? And with this team that's had some salary cap issues the last couple of years, granted they're going to be in a good spot this offseason, are you going to be willing to give that much to this quarterback who, let's be real here, they were protected? Like we need to stop being nice sometimes. Daniel Jones was protected constantly this year, and Saquon Barkley was a big reason why he looked as good as he did. I know you can make the receiving option, but straight up, Daniel Jones is a fine quarterback. He can sometimes be a good quarterback, but is he the quarterback for the future? To me, it's obvious. If you need to deliberate on it more than a few minutes, the answer should be no. So we'll see what happens there. But just in the game of itself, Eagles clearly proved why they are one of the two teams that are the class of the NFC. We predicted it from the start as soon as we got closer to the playoffs. So we knew it was going to be 49ers Eagles in the NFC title game for like the last month and a half of the season. So props to us, boys. But yeah, Eagles just thoroughly dominated them. Giants, good season. All the credit in the world. You build from here, but don't get too full of yourself because we have seen teams make the playoffs in year one and have a nice first year with a coach, and it can go down bad if they do the wrong things. So buyer beware, New York. Like, this was a good year. Don't screw it up. That's all I can say.
All right, we move on over to the other NFC divisional round game. The San Francisco Niners defeat the Dallas Cowboys 19-12. Fellas, a low-scoring game. I think this was a game determined by defense and dumb decisions, actually. We'll get to that part. But, yeah, for the 49ers, Brock Purdy, 19 for 29, 214 yards, 0 touchdowns with 0 picks. Elijah Mitchell, 14 carries, 51 yards. Christian McCaffrey, 10 carries, 35 yards. I believe he had a touchdown. But yeah, and for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, 23 for 37, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. I think he's the big topic of debate here. 10 carries for Ezekiel Elliott for 26 yards. And then Tony Pollard, 6 carries for 22 yards. But I believe Tony Pollard did get hurt towards the end there. This was, yeah, wasn't surprising. Well, look, it was a little bit back and forth, actually. And, I mean, once it was close and towards the end, you just kind of felt like, it was a matter of time before the Cowboys kind of blew this. They lose by a touchdown. The Niners advance to the NFC Conference Championship game. Dallas, Dallas, Dallas. I know it's easy to kind of blame McCarthy. Um, and of course he deserves some of the blame here, but man, Dak Prescott this game. Oof. It is the Niners, right? Arguably the best defense in the NFL. Hard to look good against them. But man, I mean, you guys could take it from like what happened towards the end there, bro. They were, I don't know, where were they at in like the last play? It was like the 20 or 30 yard line. Schultz had a brutal mistake where he didn't land both his feet. Yeah, and then I think that cost him like a few yards, and then it was fourth down, and then then Dak gave it to Ezekiel Elliott, and then Ezekiel Elliott got pounced like in 10 yards
He got
instead of
slaughtered.
instead of just throwing a Hail Mary, which they kind of needed at that point. But I guess they were trying to like do that thing. Passes to Elliott, he passes it back, and then of course you try to like hope for the best. You keep doing that until you get something, but it was, I don't know, man, because Elliott was like surrounded by the defense too. They kind of just knew, and then boom, got pounced. But yeah, I mean, Jurg, what'd you make of this game? Obviously, a low scoring game, a defensive game. But yeah, what'd you make of the performance from both teams? What'd you make of Dak's performance? I know that's the hot topic of debate. McCarthy, now that it's that time where rumors are going to swirl about whether his job is safe or not. But obviously, Dallas is like the thing to talk about. But also, let's talk about the Niners because they do advance to the NFC Championship game because there are some people that didn't think they looked that impressive as they go against as they're gonna go to the next round facing the Eagles. So confidence may not be as high. So what'd you make of this game?
Well, we saw what happened. Like Brock Purdy finally played like the last pick in the draft. He finally played like a seventh round rookie quarterback. It wasn't his best game. He only got sacked. He did get sacked only 2 times, but still. But no, this is what happens sometimes when you get deeper in the playoffs. And the Dallas Cowboys, for all intents and purposes, the defense was great early on in the season. We were talking about the Dallas Cowboys and how great that defense was. Michael Parsons was the defensive player of the year candidate. Trevon Diggs looked like he could actually cover somebody past 20 yards down the field and not just collect pointless interceptions like Russell Westbrook collects pointless triple doubles in his prime. It looked like the Cowboys had a defense here, but then. See, this is the thing. The game is both physical and mental, and I think this was just yet another example now that the Dallas Cowboys just do not have that championship winning mentality. And I hate to sometimes speak in those generalities, but what further proof do you need than you have the golden opportunity? This 49ers team, your defense did its job consistently throughout this one. They made it so that Brock Purdy and this rushing attack was pretty stymied for the most part. Only 113 total yards rushing by the 49ers on 32 carries. That's only 3.5 yards a carry. Their longest uh, carry on a single, your longest run, on a single carry was only 13 yards. The defense did its job in this one. Nothing, like you cannot say a single bad thing about the Cowboys defense. They did their job. That offense, though. First off, I want to side note here real quick, and people are still questioning why Lamar Jackson chose not to come back. Look at Tony Pollard, had a career year, just got an injury in the playoffs. How's it going to affect his free agency? Rest the case. Moving on from that. This is where you also point out the 49ers defense was absolutely outstanding as well. Only 76 total rushing yards for the Dallas Cowboys on 22 carries, so 3.5 yards, so very similar right there. It just like these teams were fighting for yards any which way they could. And sometimes it had to be, I don't want to call it a fluky play, but you had to make a miraculous play to happen. I think of the George Kittle reception he had that really should have been an incompletion or maybe even a pick, I think, depending on how close the defender was. But George Kittle with his miraculous level of play, the few times that the Niners were able to get the ball down the field between Elijah Mitchell and McCaffrey, where McCaffrey finished to drive off one with a touchdown on one of them. The 49ers, what this game was is that you have to do whatever it took and you had to win in such an ugly way. The Niners have proven they can do that several times over the last couple of seasons. The Cowboys cannot. They just cannot. This Cowboys team was bad. Zeke performed poorly. I think this is the first season where they might get a little bit of cap savings by cutting him. So we're going to see what happens there with a contract restructure. There needs to be a conversation because Dalton Schultz just did not have a good game and really like I without looking at the stats, it felt like he was like this season he didn't make an impact that was worthy of the guy that got franchise tag that they had to let Amari Cooper go for. They need to get more depth along this team. Offensive line wise, Dak was only sacked one time, but with the rushing attack of the Cowboys being stifled, I think they need to look at that. But yeah, let's address the two elephants in the room: Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy here. Uninspiring play calling by McCarthy. We'll get to that last play in a second here. I know Dame's got a lot to say about that, but Dak Prescott just played poorly, and I have caped up for Dak in the past. I feel like he has been a good and even great quarterback in the past, but this season, just not at all. And in this game, no. And I know he outdueled Tom Brady last week, but this is why we try not to do knee jerk reactions because you could play great one week and you could play poorly next week. This is the same Cowboys team that destroyed the Minnesota Vikings, who were the number 3 seed, and somehow lost to the Washington Commanders and Sam Howell in the last week of the regular season. This Cowboys team was inconsistent throughout a lot of the season. They just at times did not look that great. They were a paper. I don't want to say they were a paper playoff team, but they just were not good. And again, I think this was another case in a different way to the Giants Eagles game where it just showed you why the 49ers are one of the top 2 teams. Because while this was a closer, uglier game, the Niners won because they made the plays. They got the winning moments. They had that edge. The Cowboys, as a whole, collectively, do not have that edge. And it comes down to the quarterback, who I just don't think is a great leader for them. All due respect to Dak, but he's just not. And Mike McCarthy is not a great leader either. And I know Jerry Jones immediately said it after the game, like, I'm not looking to change anything after this or whatever he said. But no, like, he's going to look at it. I promise you, he's probably like, there's a reason why Sean Payton hasn't signed yet, because he's probably waiting for the Cowboys' early playoff exit so Jerry Jones and him could have a nice sit-down conversation. And trust me, they're not just going to catch up and talk about how the families are doing, to say the very least. That's simply what it is. So Dak Prescott played poorly, 2 interceptions, bad. QBR barely over 50, no bueno. Only 1 touchdown, 5.6 yards per complete. Like, just was not a good game for the Cowboys, simply put, and especially for the Cowboys offense. It was just terrible. They got stuffed by that 49ers defense, an elite defense. You got to beat at least one elite defense to go far in the playoffs, and the Cowboys just could not do that, to say the least. And Mike McCarthy, I mean, what the hell was that last play? Like, the 49ers literally called a timeout, and D'Amico Ryans was literally looking at them like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, the Cowboys had a chance to get out of that, and they just didn't. So, at the end of the day, suffice it to say, the Cowboys were just thoroughly outplayed. They were outcoached. They were out tactic. They were outgunned physically and mentally, and that's what the playoffs is. This is the greatest test of your skill in every which way. And once again, are we really surprised? The Cowboys and Mike McCarthy failed at that. So take with that what you will.
I'm gonna actually say I was surprised by this result, but not by the winner. I was just surprised how close this game was because although they did win by a touchdown, obviously, but it felt the game was tied pretty much throughout the game, whether it was 3-3, 6-6, 9-9. It was tied throughout the game until the very end where the Niners kind of just pulled away with that last touchdown. But the credit does not go to the Cowboys offense or Dak Prescott specifically. It goes to that Cowboys defense. Although I do think Brock Purdy kind of showed why he was literally the last pick in the draft, I am going to give a lot of credit to that Cowboys defense because before the game, one of my friends asked me what's the way that the Cowboys could win, and I said that it was to get pressure on Brock Purdy and kind of get him rattled because he hasn't seen pressure throughout his very short starting career. He's kind of always had a clean pocket, quick passes, it's a 3-step drop back, just quickly dump it off to one of your playmakers. So I felt like if you get pressure him, sack him, hit him a couple times, it'll kind of get him off his rhythm and something he's not used to because he clearly hasn't been. And early on, the Cowboys did do that. They were getting sacks, and if they weren't getting sacks, they were hurrying him into throws that he didn't want to make, into bad throws, inaccurate throws, even hitting him without getting the sack. So I think that had a lot to do with why the game was close. And to be honest, at some point in the game, I even thought the Cowboys had a chance to kind of pull it away. It was just going to come back to Dak Prescott. And silly me for believing that because Dak Prescott just clearly showed that he just isn't that guy. Um, he hasn't been that guy all season long. I praised him, uh, obviously, for the performance against the Bucks because he absolutely deserved it. It wasn't a fluke. That's what he has in him. He has that kind of talent and capability to have games like that all the time and be that kind of quarterback. However, when it just feels like every time it's the biggest moment, biggest stage, and where people expect him to be great, he just isn't. And people expected him to maybe build off that performance against the Bucks and take his games to the next level and kind of have back to back games like that and get another playoff win and get the Cowboys to the conference championship. But same old Dak, biggest moment, same way against the Niners last year. He just stunk it up, and he's the reason that they lost this game. Not gonna play on Mike McCarthy, or Kellen Moore, or any of the play callers. It was on Dak Prescott. He did not make the plays he needed to make. Their defense played better than you even expected them to play. The Niners have been putting up 30 plus points in basically every start that Brock Purdy had. And their defense held them to 19 points. Dak Prescott, the quarterback you are, the amount of money you get paid, with the weapons you have around you, you should be able to score more than 19 points. I don't care if it's the playoffs. I don't care what defense you're going against. If you want to play up to your capabilities and make sure people don't come at you for being overpaid or overrated, you need to make the plays you that's asked of you to score over 19 points to win your team the ball game. As for Niners, like I said, Brock Purdy kind of showed why he's that seventh rounder and that last pick in the draft. Um, Maybe the Cowboys kind of showed a little bit of a game plan of how to rattle him and kind of get him off his game for the Eagles. I'm sure the Eagles are going to be looking very deeply into this film at what the Dallas defense did. But the 49ers are just so loaded that even if their quarterback clearly doesn't have that great of a game, their defense or their playmakers can kind of carry them. And offense, it was George Kittle. I mean, he had one hell of a game. I think he had like 95 yards, 7 catches, but that one catch in the middle of the field where he kind of caught it one-handed, Brock Purdy a little overthrew him a little bit, and Kittle kind of like tapped it back to himself 2 times and brought it in before a big hit. I think that was what changed the entire game right there. And that's what I'm talking about, where this 49er team, when one position isn't doing well, they have so many other great players at every other position that kind of make up for them. And that defense, of course, although Dak was bad, their defense is just so good. They always put pressure on him to kind of hide that how bad that secondary is and was this game because CeeDee Lamb absolutely ate. But yeah, it's good. I mean, I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do this offseason. Jerry Jones said he's going to keep Mike McCarthy. I think he is, unless he could get Sean Payton, because you just never pass up the upgrade of Mike McCarthy to Sean Payton. But it's going to be about if Sean Payton wants to come there and if the Cowboys even want to pay that compensation, which is going to cost, which is supposedly 2 first-round picks and $25 million a year, which I think personally is nuts, but it is what it is. But as for the Niners, they're going to the Eagles, which is, like I already mentioned kind of before, is going to be an insane matchup. These teams are so evenly matched, and their strengths play to each other's strengths, so it's going to be a great game.
All right, let's move on over to the AFC. First game, the Kansas City Chiefs defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 27-20. So, to get this out of the way, Trevor Lawrence 24 for 39, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I just wanted to mention this. Christian Kirk had a really bad drop, man. It was, oh my God, it was a crucial moment of the game, and it was a dart from Trevor Lawrence. And man, I feel bad that Christian Kirk just dropped that pass. But such is the roller coaster of Christian Kirk, by the way. For the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes 22 for 30, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, zero interceptions. Chad Henne 5 for 7, 23 yards, 1 touchdown, zero interceptions. We bring up Chad Henne because the big story of this game is that Patrick Mahomes suffered a high ankle sprain early on in the game, and he had to leave the game for a bit. Chad Henne took the reins, and then Patrick Mahomes came back to play through it. Obviously, that's going to be the main point of discussion here. But let's talk about the game real quick. Chiefs early start. They took care of business, scored quick. The Jaguars came back. They responded very quick as well. It seemed like we were going to have the makings of a very back and forth game. And then Patrick Mahomes goes down in what looked and what appeared to be, when you saw it on the replay, it looked a lot worse actually, because like the ankle was kind of like turned in instead of like turning out, and it looked like the knee got fucked up too. He limped off, and my God, was there like this just silence in Arrowhead, bro. And I think for NFL fans in general, we're just like, damn, bro, is Mahomes gonna miss the playoffs now? So they took him out the game. it was a quick X-ray, man. I don't know. They got the horse tranquilizer, and he was able to play. They wrapped up that ankle. Initial diagnosis was a high ankle sprain. I don't know if people know the timetable and recovery for a high ankle sprain, but it's like weeks to months recovery, man. And I think Cooper Cup had a high ankle sprain, by the way, but like I think his was a little bit more severe where he needed surgery. But of course, Mahomes is Mahomes. They ultimately won the matchup 27-20. So obviously, we know that Mahomes, like, this is actually like a memorable performance from him. He did his thing on like basically 1 foot. We could sing his praises, obviously. I will say this though, I'm kind of disappointed in the Jaguars because you have a hobbled Mahomes. You kind of lose this game. This was a winnable game for them. I feel like they didn't take advantage of Mahomes not being 100%, and I think it says more about the Jaguars than it does about the Chiefs. I don't know, man. I just feel like the Jaguars had a chance to kind of win this game, and they didn't. But look, it's their first postseason in a while. This is Trevor Lawrence's first postseason. And you know what? They're going to be a lot better next year. So I'm not going to fully blame them, but I do think they had a golden opportunity here, man. And they had a lot of momentum going into this game. But they did fight back after the Chiefs scored and they responded. I was like, okay, Jags. They didn't seem afraid of them, and they didn't step down. But yeah, it was a good game. Obviously, the big takeaway here, Mahomes hurt. How that will factor into the Bengals game, we'll talk about that when we make our predictions in a bit. Yeah, I mean, Mahomes, another testament to his greatness for how he handled the game after this. Shout out to the O line because they protected him. Obviously, he couldn't scramble, so they kind of just like it was kind of quick throws, not a lot of darts towards the end like we know Mahomes to do. But shout out to the O line, like they protected him after the ankle got hurt. You didn't see a lot of I didn't see a lot of pressure towards him. So Jerg, talk to me about this game. What'd you make of it? And would you make? You know what? Save the Mahomes injury because we could talk about that for the Bengals. You could talk about like your initial reaction to when it did happen, though.
Yeah, so my initial reaction was, oh, this is going to be very interesting. But the thing is, this wasn't unfamiliar territory. Remember, a couple of years ago when it was the Browns and Kansas City Chiefs, I think in the divisional round as well,
Concussion.
yeah, Mahomes was out, and he was out for the rest of the game. Then they had to finish without him. This one, he was only out for a bit before he came back. But they put Chad Henne in, and it jogged my memory that Chad Henne was still the Chiefs' backup quarterback after all this time. But B, the Chiefs were still able to perform, and like it does kind of say something about the Jaguars, but I think it also says something about the Chiefs. The fact that the defense was able to hold firm. There, like this is the good thing about having a coach like an Andy Reid. They were calm, they were steady, the ship held, they were composed. There was no panic with the offense. They believed that they would be able to drive down. And look, they still got help. The young Isaiah Pacheco did a outstanding job with his running. He was a beast. He almost finished with 100 yards in this one. Travis Kelsey did his job, whether Mahomes was in or out, and finished with 2 touchdowns. Like, it was just a composed team that lost their best player, their leader, their quarterback, but they were confident that even without him for a bit that they were going to be able to right the ship and that they were going to be able to stay in the lead, and that's what they did. And that's what great teams are able to do when not everything is going their way. They're able to weather the storm per se. And I think it was just a thing like you mentioned here, Chris. At the end of the day, yes, could some better scheming have been done? And again, that Doug Peterson, as good as he is, been for this team, a leader, he's won a Super Bowl before, et cetera, et cetera. Like, he will get exposed offensively at times. And the second half for the Jaguars kind of said it, where 2 punts to start the second half, followed by the touchdown, then a fumble, interception, and only a field goal. Like, and they started the game with 2 punts. Jags could have been better. Very simply put, or no, two of their first 3 drives of the game were punts. Excuse me, but like the Jags could have been a little bit better, especially when Mahomes went down. But at the end of the day, like again, this is a golf. The Jaguars, young team, developing team, they got some weapons there. They still need to continue to support Trevor Lawrence, and hopefully they'll be able to make that happen. Now, it's, Trent Baalke is the GM, so I don't know about that, but um, there's a lot there to like about Jacksonville, but they just quite simply they faced a better team. But kind of like Dane mentioned, like here's the thing: if Mahomes had been healthy, this would have probably been a blowout. Like the Chiefs probably would have won by at least 2 scores. But Mahomes is out. The Chiefs' offense slows down, but it didn't stop, and that's the key here. They didn't stop. Uh, there was Pacheco, Kelsey. It was a team effort to get the W. And again, this is what you have to do sometimes in the playoffs. You have to, rise above what happens to you over the course of the game, and you have to go against it. The Chiefs, looked, they did enough. That's the best way I could say it. They did enough, and sometimes that's how you got to win in the NFL against this Jaguars team. So props to them that they were able to stay. Was I a little bit concerned? Sort of. Because everyone loves the whole Trevor Lawrence never lost on a Saturday thing, which that's all dead and buried now, thankfully. Nothing against Trevor Lawrence, just the people that use that as a legitimate point when giving analysis on that game. You people know who I'm talking about. But I I felt that the Chiefs were able to play a team effort, and I felt the defense had to Mahomes being out, I think woke up that defense. I think it made them step up and they played with great energy. They were able to get to Lawrence. They were able to make things harder for him. They were able to force a couple plays here and there. Like they just played some great coverage overall. And I think that was the key thing with the struggling that Christian Kirk did. Ingram only had 31 yards and Zay Jones had a pretty good game for himself with 83 yards there. But Marvin Jones only had a catch. Travis Etienne, he had a decent rushing game, but they eventually went away from the running. And I think when you can force a team to not when you can trick a team to not run the ball as much when that was their strength, because ATN had 62 yards on 10 carries, I think that was a good job by the defense to be able to get them off kilter. Props in the world to it was a team win by the Kansas City Chiefs when their best player went down, and that's all you could ask for in a situation like that where there probably was some fear, at least to those watching, like, oh, are the Chiefs going to lose early here? So great team win by Kansas City. AFC championship game once again for them for I think the fourth or fifth straight year they run the AFC.
Yes, the Kansas City Invitational. They're there like every year, I think,
Arrowhead
since Mahomes is a
Invitational.
starter. But um, obviously the big news is Patrick Mahomes' injury. Kind of looked like maybe the Chiefs had control of the game, and Patrick Mahomes until the injury was absolutely dealing. I think it was like 9 for 11 with like 100 yards or something like that. But it just looked like the offense was super flowing. Like I kind of predicted maybe there'd be a little rust because I've seen it from the Chiefs before when they've had a bye, a little bit of rust. But there's absolutely no rust to that offense. They were moving the ball up and down the field, passing the ball, running the ball very efficiently. And obviously, the scary part is when he got hurt. Felt like all sports fans around like were just like in shock because Mahomes is such a likable guy. You just don't want to see him get hurt. You don't see anyone get hurt, but especially a guy like Mahomes. But Chad Henne, I want to give him props for that incredible, probably the best drive all weekend from any team in any game was that 97-yard drive that the Chiefs had, led by Chad Henne. He obviously didn't do much, but it was such a masterful job of a combination of him and Andy Reid from the play calling standpoint, where they just made the easy plays here and there. It wasn't no chunk plays, no 20-plus yard plays, other than that, I think a Pacheco run. But it was just 7-yard slant, 7-yard curl, this and that, moving the ball up and down the field, moving the chains, first down, first down, first down. I think that's what really set the tone for the game. Like, wow, even if Mahomes, from the Jaguar standpoint, it's like, wow, even if Mahomes is out, like, this offense is still incredibly tough to deal with and really hard to stop. And how are we going to do it? Because obviously it's a different QB from Chad Henne to Mahomes. So, big process, obviously, Pacheco, 97 yards rushing on the ground. That was huge. Chiefs usually don't get much production on the ground, but Pacheco really stepped up his game after Mahomes went down, and that's something they needed. I think without the running game, I don't know if they would have won this game because, like you guys mentioned, the Jaguars really stuck in there and made this a tough game on the offensive side and defensive side. Trevor Lawrence maybe didn't have his best game, but he played good enough where he gave his team a chance to win. And maybe he didn't make the play at the end of the game that he needed to make. I know he threw a pick, and I think Jamar Hasty, I think his name was, or Agnew, one of the two backup running backs, fumbled inside the red zone, and I think that's really what was the biggest killer in the game and kind of ended the game there. But I mean, Chiefs again, another AFC Championship game. Jaguars showed you why they're going to be such a threat for years to come. The team is so young, so many explosive playmakers, so much potential, and they're definitely going to be a team that all these top teams like the Bills, the Bengals, and the Chiefs are going to see for a very long time in the AFC.
Okay, our final game of the AFC divisional round. Bengals and Bills. Ugh, I guess the most noteworthy of the games. Bengals defeat the Bills 27-10 in Buffalo. Fellas, you guys had the Bengals winning. I feel like y'all didn't envision this game going the way it did, actually. But
I did.
you thought they were gonna blow them out?
No, I was screwing around.
Oh, I was about to say. Okay. Yeah. Joe Burrow, 23 for 36, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Joe Mixon, 20 carries, 105 yards. Jamar Chase, 5 receptions for 61 yards. The Bengals are on one. They were just solid as hell. They came into Buffalo and they just took their lunch money, man. The writing was on the wall for this game in like the first like half of the first quarter, to be honest. Like the Bengals were just smoking them, bro. For the Bills, 25 for 42 for Josh Allen, 265 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Stephon Diggs, 4 receptions for 35 yards. There's, the whole video of Stephon Diggs kind of yelling at Josh Allen on the sideline. The Bengals, they deserve all the credit in the world, man. Like they just went to Buffalo and just took that game from them, bro. And we expected a banger of a game. We kind of hyped this up to be WrestleMania quality. Was not. The Bengals just kind of slaughtered them. The Bills, oof. I mean, we got to credit the Bengals defense, but like I don't know, man. It's just the defense wasn't up to par. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs weren't in sync. Just the Bills couldn't get anything going, bro. And there was I think it was 14-0 Bengals. No, it was 14-0 Bengals, and then the Bills, I think, responded and finally got a touchdown. And we're just like, okay, here we go. Now the game will start. And now the Bills will kind of hit their stride. And then Josh Allen will have a couple throws to get him, to get into the groove. Nothing, man. And the Bengals responded all the time, bro. And it just felt like the Bills couldn't stop the run sometimes. Mixon was eating. Burrow was just surgical. And yeah, man, I think it says more about the Bills. I mean, it says a lot about both teams, actually. But I think it says more about the Bills here. And it was a very disappointing performance because I thought this game was going to be probably one of the best games of the season. Dan, let me start off with you. What'd you make of this game? And obviously, what'd you make of the performance from both teams? Specifically the Bills. I think let's touch upon the Bengals first. Talk about the Bengals first, and then the Bills.
So, I mean, the Bengals have been, I feel like, the hottest team in the second half of the NFL season, and they've showed you why. They went into Buffalo in the snow and absolutely dominated this team on both sides of the football. Joe Burrow absolutely had a masterclass performance. I know, obviously, he didn't have like 300, 400 yards, but 252, 242 with 2 touchdowns. He didn't turn the ball over. He was just hitting all his guys from Hayden Hurst to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, giving the ball to Joe Mixon, letting him run it. And their defense played absolutely incredible. I think that's the most underrated part of this team is their defense. Something that many don't talk about, but it seems like in all the big games, they always make plays to keep their team in the ballgame or even shut them out like the way they did in this game against the Bills. I mean, Joe Burrow, I think, in my eyes, to solidify himself as the second best quarterback in the league. I know a lot of people start talking about Josh Allen throughout the year and last year after that matchup with Mahomes, but it's clearly Joe Burrow now. Josh Allen has showed absolutely nothing this year to even be in the discussion for that. A lot of people wanted to put him in the discussion for the best, and I think that was absolutely ludicrous, and he's shown you why. So now going to the Bills, Josh Allen feeds another one of my quarterback agendas, and that's about him, where he just doesn't deserve to be even in the same discussion as the best quarterback in the league. And
how many agendas do you have, Dave, against these quarterbacks?
Dak Prescott, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, and Josh Allen.
I feel like there might be more if we really went looking, but continue.
Those are my 4 agendas, but yeah. Josh Allen just shouldn't be in that discussion for the best quarterback in the league, and now he shouldn't even be in discussion for the second best quarterback in the league because Joe Burrow, throughout the entire season now in a head-to-head matchup, has shown why he's a better quarterback. He's just so much more poised, and I don't know if you guys saw that video of the 360 throw. I think that's literally one of the coolest videos out on social media and on the internet. And all in the all-white uniform too, but that's just a side note. It has nothing to do with my opinion here. But Josh Allen, again, another turnover, another interception. It just feels like he has a turnover, multiple turnovers in every game. And now that's back-to-back playoff games with turnovers as well, so that just makes it even worse. He got lucky that, like I kind of talked about in the last podcast, they played Skylar Thompson as a quarterback because he probably wouldn't even get out the first round if there was a better quarterback on the other side. Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen has everything he needs to be successful. He has a rocket arm. He has a great offense, a great coach, a great defense. He played at home in the snow. And there was a podcast he was on a few weeks ago where he was talking about how he doesn't want a dome in Buffalo for their new stadium because teams should have to come into Buffalo and play in the snow, and it's kind of part of football. Well, clearly it affected them on offense because they only had 10 points. He was missing throw after throw. You saw Stephon Diggs kind of get frustrated him on the sideline, and So you just throughout the game, I can see why Stephon Diggs was so kind of frustrated with him because he was Josh Allen was missing a lot of easy throws to Diggs, and Diggs' numbers maybe didn't look well, but I think if Josh Allen hit him on most of these easy throws, his numbers would look better. But yeah, Bengals absolutely deserve this. They were the hottest team throughout the second half of the season, and going into Arrowhead, man, that's gonna be some matchup.
Ah, vindication, ladies and gentlemen. Because I remember in the preseason, we had a question. Who would be because it was previously the idea that the Kansas City Chiefs were supposed to have a down year in 2022, 2023. Oh, how wrong we were. But, aside from that, who could challenge the Bills come a playoff game? What we had the Colts, Chargers, one other team, and then the Bengals. And I specifically remember a certain somebody said the Bengals have the firepower to go up against the Bills. And I specifically remember somebody saying he would take Jamar Chase over Stephon Diggs. I'm talking about myself, of course. Vindication. So thank you, Jamar Chase, who should have had 2 touchdowns. By the way, it was so stupid. Like the Bills could have lost by even more if the NFL just actually did his job and let that remain a touchdown when it should have been. But irregardless, no, yeah, it was a thorough victory for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow is the cerebral assassin of quarterbacks when it comes to being able to pick apart a defense. Like you said, Chris, he was methodical. He picked them apart. There was like 1 or 2 quick drives, but a lot of the drives for Cincy were 4.5, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, just chewing at the clock, eating time, so that whenever the Bills would finally get the ball, if they were able to do something, they were slowly losing time as the game progressed. And the Bills were just flat in so many offensive instances, so many more punts than what most people would have envisioned from this team. The offense just did not look good. Like Dame said, shout out to this underrated Cincinnati Bengals defense with Trey Hendrickson, great. Jesse Bates, I think one of the more underrated safeties in the league, did his job. And for all the crap talk he does, and for all that we want to say, Eli Apple did all right. Not saying he was the one sole responsible for anyone being locked up on Buffalo's end, but he did all right. He didn't get blowtorched by anybody on the Bills, so that's a W for him, considering this is the same Bills team that, again, Stephon Diggs is their number one. And B, Gabe Davis had, 4 touchdowns last season against the Patriots in the wild card game? But obviously this Bengals team is way better. Just again, I feel like we could say this in some way, shape, or form for 3/4 of the playoff games in this round, but the Bills just got outplayed by the Bengals. Simply put, the running game was better, and we've talked about the running games for the as a weakness for the Bills defense for years. We talked about this when we did our first ever playoff preview, whatever you want to call it, each week on a show 2 years ago when it was the Colts and the Bills, and the Colts nearly won that game. They were a throw away from winning that contest because I think it was our rookie Jonathan Taylor at the time torched them in that game. It was him and Naheem Hines, who, funny enough, is a Bill years later, full circle. But we know that the running game is a weakness to the defense. Joe Mixon goes for over 100. No receiver on Cincinnati had a outstanding, individual game, but it was a concerted team effort to keep drives alive, to, get open as best you could in those conditions. And again, Joe Burrow, this is a guy who just knows how to play in this weather. This is a guy who just knows how to play in these situations, whatever you want to call him. I prefer to call him Joe Cool 2.0 because in this atmosphere, I have seen little reason why I shouldn't put my faith in Joe Burrow. I'm with Dame. I think he's the second best quarterback in the NFL, and I don't think it's close compared to who's supposed to be his contemporaries in that instance. I really don't. This is the same guy who, when Jamar Chase went down, the Bengals were still winning games and they were still putting up points. This is the same guy who 3/5 of his offensive linemen went down and they were still able to do this. And I think, he get only sacked once in this game, maybe twice? Like, the Bengals were just, I do want to give a shout out to the offensive line because their offensive line held in this game when a lot of people thought it was going to break because this Bills front four was apparently supposed to be dangerous even without Von Miller. Yeah, okay. At the end of the day, Buffalo just got outdone. They got outplayed. They got outworked. And they got out quarterback. They got out receiver. They got out everything. The coverage on Stephon Diggs was so great. They forced Josh Allen to have to look so many other ways. And we saw what happens when Josh Allen just can't rely on Stephon Diggs and he has to play a little bit reckless. And there's still some of that recklessness in him. And we talked about that for weeks. Recklessness will cost you, especially in the playoffs. But shout out to the Cincinnati Bengals. They just outplayed. It feels weird to say because there is more to it. But what more can we really say here, boys? Aside from they outplayed their competition, we thought this was going to be a 35-31, 28-24 kind of game, and the Bengals were trying to do their bargain of it. The Buffalo Bills clearly wouldn't. outstanding play overall by the Cincinnati Bengals. They deserve to make it back to the AFC Championship game, and it's a rematch. And I gotta say, this is going to be an interesting one to say the very least, because you have the hottest team in the AFC in the Bengals going up against the Chiefs. That's something I'm excited for. But yeah, back to the drawing board, Buffalo, and on to Kansas City for Joe Burrow. And like he said, I really hope anyone that pre-ordered AFC Championship game tickets, I hope you ask for them back, or you're going to Kansas City now, because ain't no neutral site game happening anymore.
Okay, predictions time for the conference championship games. Let's stick with the AFC since we're kind of already on the topic of it. Yeah, Bengals at the Chiefs, rematch from last year's AFC conference championship game. It's going to be an Arrowhead. I don't know. It's tough for me to say this, but I mean the Mahomes injury does change a lot in my opinion. I'm gonna go with the Bengals on this one, fellas. The Bengals have so much momentum on their side. I know it's an Arrowhead, but they're like I don't know. I think Dame said it. They're the hottest team in like the second half of the NFL season. Joe Burrow, unfazed. Joe Cool. That dude is just. It's hard to like not trust them in like these type of games, man. And they have the Chiefs' number. I mean, granted, like the 3 games they've played, like they were really winnable games for the Chiefs. Like it's kind of like those games where the Chiefs just kind of shot themselves in the foot. But like you can't take away from the Bengals. I think they have the Chiefs' number. Joe Burrow's playing at a very high level. There's just so much momentum on their side. I don't trust the Chiefs' defense to stop Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Um, I mean, I think they're going to do a better job than the Bills, but is that saying much? The Mahomes injury is going to limit him a little bit. I don't know, man. It could go either way. It could go either way. But I think I would have chose the Chiefs if Mahomes was like 100%. I do think them being 0-3 might motivate them a little much more, but it is the playoffs now. Like this is kind of anyone's game at this point. It's just like Burrow's going to be locked in as well. It's hard for me to go against the Bengals right now. Like there's too much momentum on their side. Ugh, man, 2 years in a row, and they're going to be the Chiefs in Arrowhead. It's gonna be sick. I know the narrative is going to be Mahomes can't beat Burrow, but oof, I really want to see Mahomes go to the Super Bowl again. But it's hard for me to pick against the Bengals this time. I mean, I hope I'm wrong as a Patrick Mahomes fan, and I love to see him in the Super Bowl once again. But I don't know. I gotta go with the Bengals on this one. I gotta go with what my mind tells me, not my heart. So yeah, I got the Bengals beating the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not giving a score prediction. I'm just gonna give you just the result. Dame.
So this is really tough for me. I think both teams are just so great. Both quarterbacks are so great. Obviously, the Chiefs have basically been the best team in the entire league all season long. Mahomes, obviously, the best quarterback, but the Bengals are so super hot. They have so many playmakers, and of course, they have the Chiefs' number every time they play them. I think Joe Burrow's like 3-0 versus Mahomes. And I think the biggest thing about that is just this Kansas City defense cannot hold the Bengals offense. They cannot play man against them because Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd eat them alive. And then when they don't play man, they'll just hand it off to Joe Mixon and he'll run it down their throat. And I feel like I'd be a lot more confident in my pick if Mahomes is healthy, 100% healthy, but I'm still going to go with the Chiefs here. It seems as if from early reports the injury isn't as bad as many expected. He's not a walking boot or anything like that. But I still think his playmaking outside the pocket and his running ability will be kind of negated and maybe not as dynamic as it usually is. But I just feel like the Chiefs are going to be so motivated to finally beat the Bengals and finally beat them in a game that will take them to the Super Bowl. And Kansas City, I think the crowd will be super into it as well, especially seeing the way Mahomes kind of battled through for them in that game against the Jaguars. I think the fans will be super motivated and super loud. It'll kind of make it hard for the Bengals on offense to get it going sometimes. But I'm not super confident in my pick, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Very, very close game, man. I think it's going to be great.
Is this the best possible AFC and NFC title game combinations we've had in like the last however many years?
I think so.
Like we are set up for great matchups here. Yeah, no, this is very difficult for me as well because like my two compatriots here, I love both these quarterbacks. I think there's great talent on both these teams. Will I get this prediction wrong like I did last year? Probably. We all got it wrong last year.
I think everyone got it wrong last year, to be honest.
Because we all picked the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I was
locked.
gonna be disappointed if you didn't, Jerk. You had to kind of go with that pick. You were with them the whole year. I'd be very disappointed if you didn't.
I have defended this team against the people who have doubted them. I defended them and said they would win the AFC North when people didn't. I said that they would beat the Buffalo Bills. I said that they could match up and beat them back in the preseason when people thought it was going to be Buffalo, Buffalo, Buffalo. I believe in the Cincinnati Bengals team. I believe they're going to make it to back-to-back Super Bowls or Super Bowls, as I love calling it. Give me Joe Cool 2.0 and this team going past Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, and let this be the AFC Championship game for like the next 5 years, please. I think that's the only other thing I wish for. This is the real Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, like, of the new generation, not those schmucks Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. They could have their own mini rivalry that's not even a rivalry.
Jeez. All right. Okay. NFC time, baby. Another banger of a matchup. San Francisco 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. I think before the Niners-Cowboys game, I was going to go with the 49ers if this was a matchup. But kind of seeing how they performed, Brock Purdy going against a good defense, and now he's going to go against a better defense. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles on this one. I know the Niners have been hot, but this could go either way. I'm not obviously, I think this is similar to the AFC Championship game. Ultimately, so I think both defenses are elite. Both teams have great offensive weapons. I think what it'll come down to is quarterback play. I trust Jalen Hurts over Brock Purdy, and I think the defense will do more to limit Brock Purdy than the Niners defense will do to Jalen Hurts, which is kind of saying a lot because the Niners defense is elite, right? But I don't know, man. I really do see. I think because the O line is healthy and Lane Johnson is playing. I know he's not 100%, but he is playing. There's more protection for Jalen Hurts there. So I think I trust Jalen Hurts. I think that week off, he obviously, and Hurts also isn't 100% like he says, but he's still playing at a very high level. I trust Jalen Hurts over Brock Purdy. I think the quarterback play is what the final result will come down to. I got to go with the Eagles on this one. Basically, my Super Bowl prediction is the Bengals versus the Philadelphia Eagles. That's me. And to be honest, that's another banger game. I think whoever the final two teams are, banger of a Super Bowl matchup regardless, in my opinion. Jerg?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think no matter what combination of teams we get here, I think we're in store for what probably is gonna end up being the best Super Bowl matchup. Like there's no bad Super Bowl matchup between these teams. You could get Chiefs 49ers a rematch, or Chiefs Eagles, which would be very interesting, or you could get Bengals Eagles, which again interesting, or Bengals 49ers. That's a rematch because the Bengals are actually, fun fact, like, they not only are they winless in the Super Bowl, they are 0-3. All three of those losses come against NFC West teams, two of the times being against the San Francisco 49ers. So there we go. A little history factoid for the people. Who am I picking in this one? Look, I know Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback than Brock Purdy, but Jalen Hurts did not look impressive in the last round against the Giants. And I think this season he has more games passing under 200 yards than he has games passing over 300 yards, or at least it's very close. There's some inconsistencies there, and I think the San Francisco 49ers defense is just so strong. I will say this, their weakness is the defensive back crew, so I could see a situation where A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith might be too much for them. And if it is, so be it, but I'm running with the San Francisco 49ers. Again, another team last 2 years I've been very high on, even when they, hit some, bumps in the regular season. I believe in this team. I think they're gonna make it to the Super Bowl. I just think that defensive line is just so dominant. Like, we're talking about, this is the best defense Brock Purdy is gonna see. This is also by far going to be the best defense that Jalen Hurts has seen probably all season, mind you. So there we have it. I got an I got a 49ers Bengals Super Bowl.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Eagles here, and I just feel like the reason is because the 49ers, their strength is obviously their defense, but I think their biggest strength of their defense is their front seven. And the way to negate a front seven is a great offensive line, and Eagles clearly have the best offensive line in the league. They've been that all year. It's about being healthy, and they're the healthiest they've been all year right now with Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey, two all first team, all NFL first team. And I just think if they negate the pass rush of the 49ers, they'll be able to kind of take advantage of that defense because their weakness is their secondary, and that's one of the worst secondaries in the league. And I think having Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, those big three weapons are going to absolutely feast if Jalen Hurts is able to have time to get them the ball. so they'll have the advantage there. And then from the Eagles side, they saw what the Cowboys did to kind of rattle Brock Purdy and make him look like that 7 rounder that he is, and that's putting pressure on him. And I think the Eagles are like the first team ever to have 4 players with 10 sacks or something like that. So that they obviously have the capability to put pressure on him. It'll be about the 49ers being able to protect. But I think the Eagles on their defensive side have so many different guys who can rush the passer and get to Brock Purdy that I think they'll be able to do that and rattle him in a better way that the Cowboys did. And just the fact that the Eagles offense, I have more trust in them than the Cowboys did to kind of score points. I'm going to go with the Eagles here. Do I also do think it's going to be a close game, but I'm kind of more confident in this game than I am in my AFC pick.
Clowns and Crowns, the segment that never sleeps. Fellas, we're almost done with this, and it hurts. It hurts for me to say that because it's been such a critically acclaimed segment. I'm happy for it, but let's get to it.
I'm sure we'll find a way to bring it back in the
Yeah,
offseason.
for sure, for sure. Okay, we'll start off with our clowns because we like to finish off with winners. Dame, who do you have as your clown for the divisional round?
Clown is going to be, although I'm sure you both expected to go with Dak, I'm going to go actually Daniel Jones. The reason I'm going to go with Daniel Jones is because many expected him to be that guy for the Giants and that franchise player after having a great game against a putrid Minnesota Vikings defense. And I mean, I said this is not what you're not going to go against a Minnesota Vikings defense every single game. And long and behold, they went against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, who is 10 times better than the Vikings. And there he goes, 135 yards and 1 pick, almost 50% completion percentage, which is awful. They were down the entire game, so there's absolutely no reason you should only have 135 yards when all you're doing is throwing the ball to kind of catch up. So Daniel Jones is absolutely my clown of the week.
Really strange pick. I didn't expect that, but
Right.
for me, I have the Buffalo Bills as a whole as my clown of the week. Come on, man. You were Super Bowl favorites, and then you get pounced in the divisional round. Um, the hype was there. We were waiting for a collision course between them and the Chiefs, and then they got their asses handed to them by the Cincinnati Bengals. When it mattered the most, they didn't show up. This is coming off. Um, this is after a week in which they look sus against the Miami Dolphins, who didn't have Tua. So just not a good look for the Buffalo Bills. Defense didn't show up. Josh Allen didn't show up. It was just brutal to watch all around. Very disappointing for a team that was touted to make the Super Bowl. So my clown of the week is the Buffalo Bills. Jurg?
Well, both my picks got taken. All right. Give me, because I like trying to make it so that we could be unique here. For my clown, actually, give me the Cowboys on that last play. What the hell was that, having Zeke line up under center? And again, the 49ers were like, really? You're going to do this? All right. And they just destroyed Zeke. Like, I'm pretty sure like an outline of Zeke is still in the ground, is in the turf at the stadium. It was a rough one. Thankfully, they don't have to play there this week, San Fran. So, because I think the cleanup crew is going to take some time on that one. But yeah, that clown of the week are the Cowboys' final possession play calling scheme. It was just terrible.
Dame, your crown of the week.
So my crown of the week is going to go to Travis Kelce. I just think he went for 14 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns, and I think after Mahomes went down, it was like how's this offense going to get going? And Travis Kelce became such a reliable option for Chad Henne throughout that period where Mahomes was out. And even when Mahomes is in, like Mahomes obviously can't move around the pocket as much and can't find other open guys, but Travis Kelce obviously did his best to get open with 14 catches and made himself a reliable option for both these quarterbacks in order for the Chiefs to win this game.
All right, so my crown of the week goes to Brock Purdy because he gets to reap the rewards of a great 49ers team, and he's going to make the conference championship game in his first year being the last pick in the draft. So Brock Purdy reaping the awards of being the 49ers quarterback. You saw it with Jimmy G. Now you're going to see it with Brock Purdy. But now you're going to go against the Philadelphia Eagles, which is not going to be easy. But you made it this far, and you haven't let me down yet, Brock Purdy. You've been solid, or manageable at least. But yeah, Brock Purdy, my crown of the week. Jurg?
I'm going to go for Chief too. I got Isaiah Pacheco. He had 95 yards on 12 carries. I think on one of the plays where they ended up scoring or I think the only touchdown that Chad Henne got, I think Pacheco had a 30-yard rush or something like that to help get them down the field. He was very good again in the absence of Mahomes. I feel like this is a new toy for Andy Reid to play with now that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is basically not the same anymore. So Isaiah Pacheco, my crown of the week. He played big time for them as well. So give that boy the crown.
And that'll do it for this week, fellas. What an episode. The divisional round has come and gone. We head over to the conference championship games, which are guaranteed, seemingly guaranteed to be bangers. We're all excited for them. Fellas, great job as always this week. Jerk, where can they find us on the socials?
Guys, you already know, at somewhat.sports on Instagram to get the latest update. We always share when the pod is up. We put up polls for the important games in the playoffs. We've done that for NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, World Cup. The NFL playoffs has been a constant of that. We'll have polls this weekend as well for you guys to vote on who you think is going to win, who is going to be your superb owl matchup this year. Please let us know on the next post when we put up our predictions. And of course, listen to the show Somewhat Spaced in Sports on Spotify and YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify. Give us a 5 stars. Please let us know what you guys like about the show. I know football is taking over, but guys, don't worry. This is an all sports podcast. We will be talking about other sports soon. NBA trade deadline, NHL trade deadline. Baseball slowly going to come around the corner eventually, even though it just felt like it's over. It's a beautiful thing, to say the very least. The beautiful world of sports can be analyzed on this show, the best sports podcast out there, the Somewhat Sports Podcast.
Beautifully put as always, Jurg. Beautifully put as always. All right, Jurg and Name, phenomenal job as always. Appreciate y'all stirring the ship with me. To all the listeners listening, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. And until next time, peace.